Welcome to Collab Convo, a podcast dedicated to shining the light on the power of partnerships in the global tech space. I'm Jo Dunkley, MD of Coterie Marketing and co-founder of Coterie Community. Each episode, I speak to partner marketing or alliance leaders about what's working and what isn't, and how to make partnerships deliver real impact. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Daniel Peach, Global Director of Partnerships at Kaluza. So, Daniel, what are you responsible in the partner ecosystem space? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, happy to join, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, so I work at Kaluza, which is an energy intelligence platform, sort of an operating and data model for energy providers like OVO here in the UK, NG, AGL in Australia, so some big ones. I'm responsible for a couple different areas. So tech alliances, it's AWS, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Databricks, a few others. Software integration partners, so outside of our immediate software, but those where we have complementary stacks and complementary tech. And the big one is consultancy. So anyone from kind of BCG McKinsey through to Accenture, EY, Wipro, so kind of from strategy all the way through to execution.
Lovely. So, do you work with the marketing team at all, Daniel? Is that when you're growing partnerships, do you work alongside your marketing team, or have you got a dedicated partner marketing team?
I wish. We have an overall marketing team. I tend to work with them really closely. And a lot of my focus, I sit in the commercial org, so a lot of it is sales. But ultimately, partners are a great kind of marketing channel for us. And we use them from anything from sort of white papers and thought leadership, roundtables. Very often we host with partners through to sometimes joint events, joint activations. So yeah, we're quite keen, and we try to use marketing kind of as our entry, our door opener in a lot of cases, well ahead of sales, both for brand building, but also for really defining the category. So partners have been great with that.
That's great. Okay, cool. So let's start with a quick health check on the partnering space in general. So if you were a partnering doctor or a partner marketing doctor, what would be your initial diagnosis? So are we in good shape?
I'd say depends on who you are. So if you look at kind of the bottom of the funnel, if you're in goods and you're selling goods, a lot of referral marketing is captured by Amazon. And on the services side, increasingly, it's kind of, marketplaces. So that's typically Google, Microsoft, AWS, who own those kind of cloud relationships, are increasingly selling through, their marketplaces, and they're capturing a lot of that. So at the point of sale, I think a lot of that is it's a bit tricky to break through. Where I'd say there's a lot of opportunity and maybe more room to capture is kind of consideration and awareness. Very often, if you can break through both on brand recognition, but also getting in the consideration set long before somebody is at the point where they are going to click to accept on the contract, you can start to really insert yourself and almost like broaden what they know about your brand rather than just your end products or your price. You can start to really influence on kind of culture fit, maybe differentiation on servicing, whatever that kind of unique value prop is. But not many people are doing it well because it's honestly quite difficult.
Yeah, it is, and I guess it's more complex because there is such a big ecosystem of people that are involved in that and so many different personas, and it's very difficult, isn't it, to move at speed
Mm.
and make sure that those people get the right message at the right time in that particular part of the buying cycle as well, isn't it? That's a real challenge, I think, for the market at the moment. Are
Yeah,
you
it's
seeing that as well, Daniel?
exactly. Yeah, honestly, it's just conversations, and it's multiple conversations. So when let's say Accenture is probably our biggest partner at the moment. Accenture operates in, I don't know, over 100 countries.
Yeah.
It's organized in a very, decentralized way. So every time we want to onboard a new market, it's a new conversation. And, we have kind of shared templates, training, things that we can send on that try to speed through that process a little bit. But, communicating your brand's value takes time, and you can lean really heavily on tooling to do that. but you may not want to, right? You may say, we actually prefer for, our marketers or our salespeople to deliver that message. And so it's tricky, right? Right now it's just a huge time investment, and
Yeah.
nurturing them from kind of just being aware of what the platform is to being able to speak about your brand, or again, activate your brand in any number of marketing collateral pieces, takes a lot of time and a lot of work.
Would you say that's the biggest gap at the moment in the market, Daniel? I mean, in general, would you say that's the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge. I guess maybe a challenge before that is figuring out who the right partners are. And a lot of this it depends on information, right? So we mapped back to our total prospect list kind of globally and looked at who they were working with. And some of this is public, right? If there's a case study, you'll be able to identify that, energy provider A is working with UI, for instance.
Yeah.
A lot of it is not public. And so a lot of the upfront investment, post awareness is talking about geographies in which, these partners operate, what kind of customers, if you're under NDA, which customers. And in enterprise sales, when you're dealing with a kind of fixed list of customers that's, sub 500, it takes a lot of time, but you can reasonably do that. And when you're working at scale with thousands or even millions of customers, it's really tricky. So you have to find maybe proxies to figure out who the right partners could be, so you can figure out where to invest that time.
And that's the big thing, isn't it? How do you identify the right partners? And so, how do you, what's the signal that you would look for, Daniel, when you're looking for whether you should invest your time in a specific partner?
Yeah, we cheated a little bit and used Claude. So we figured out, we took the addressable kind of market list map back, and tried to get an understanding of who worked with whom, right? And some of this is both tech partners and consulting partners. We looked at who was on, for instance, AWS or Microsoft, who used SAP or Salesforce, some of the bigger partners. And this was, I think, reasonably helpful. It's not totally accurate, and there's not a great solution for that kind of mapping. A few tools in the market, but I don't think anybody uses them. So one of it is, what is who's actually incumbent, who's mapped. The other one is energy, right? Is we've got a few partners who I think would be amazing, but we're not getting the same energy we're putting back, putting in to them. And there are other partners who we would call less strategic, but they're eager. And so I'm going to take those meetings and, try to equip them as best I can, even if I think they address a single market or a smaller set of, our prospective customer base.
I love that word actually. I've never heard it expressed in that way before, but I love the word energy. When you say energy, what does that mean to you? How does that present itself, Daniel?
Yeah, I was at a conference recently, and there's a partner who I've had conversations with over time, but fairly limited, and they brought the full brass to come talk to me. And I think that's a sign, right, that they're interested, they're invested. A lot of that, even some of our what we would call strategic partners, if they are not taking meetings or they're not responding to emails very easily, it's like chasing a dead lead, right? I mean, ultimately, it's going to take so much time to actually get them fully up to speed that I could have, two or three partners get ready and on board. And ultimately, they may not have as wide a voice, but they can talk to part of the market, right? And getting pieces of the market over time, I think, is quite useful. Uh,
Mm.
Getting that kind of momentum in place so that, people are talking about you.
So a sign for you that someone isn't worth your energy would be when they're not responsive or they're not collaborating. What would be a sign where you would think, oh, I'm not going to invest my time into that
Yeah,
partner?
I think those are good signals. The other one is actually, and you can kind of get a rough estimate, is let's say BCG, for instance, we work with. I might go in with the expectation that BCG is going to fully lean in and recommend our platform to all sorts of customers. And a lot of this is they're not, it doesn't meet their incentive model, nor does it really meet how they work. They're quite neutral, and they may present a bunch of options, but they're never
Mm.
going to be completely exclusive. So I might go in and say, I want, a tight partnership with BCG, but that's not going to go to the same level as, for instance, a tight partnership with, say, Capgemini, right? Who could implement our platform and who could or could not, depending on what they want to do, bias in our favor. So I think it's, the shape of the partnership is going to be different, but a lot of it is just energy signals, right? It's like, are they responding? Are they taking meetings? Am I getting to the right level of decision making on their side?
Yeah.
And what's the speed of relationship building?
Yeah. And I guess it all comes down to hitting the revenue figure, doesn't it? So you're all the time in the background. It sounds like you do a lot of prep work up front to make sure that you're looking at the right partners and the right mix of partners for your platform. And then what you're doing is you're looking for energy signals and then going down to hit that revenue target. That's what it sounds like. Is that right?
That's right. And then in addition to revenue, I think we're trying to define a brand category that's quite new. So there's the idea of data intelligence, which a lot of firms use. I think Databricks is the one that uses it the most. And then there's
Yeah.
kind of energy, and we're trying to combine into this energy intelligence, defined category. Part of that is working with analysts, so the kind of Gartners, the Frost and Sullivans, to really, own that space.
Yes.
And having those conversations is quite useful. Again, it's useful if a lot of partners are echoing that in our favor and attributing that to us. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so having those kind of awareness conversations, even if it doesn't go anywhere, is a good first step for them to even understand kind of who we are and what space we're trying to occupy.
Yeah, because I guess that they're broadcasting your messages on your behalf, aren't you? So that's where the rubber really hits the road to
Yeah.
get that message out there. If you can get that going.
Yeah, you want them talking about you when you're not in the room. That's always the goal. Talking positively, that's the end goal.
Oh, that's really interesting, Daniel. And I love the energy thing. I think that I'm going to start using that more. So before we wrap up, it'd be really lovely if you would share your experience, because I know that you've worked at Google and IBM in the past, but how did you get into this space initially? What made you interested in getting into partnerships?
Yeah, I think in business school, so I went to Said Business School at Oxford, and the big focus was solving world scale problems. And at the time, I came from defense consulting, and I thought, okay, I'm a corporate guy. I'm not. I want to solve climate change and a few of these things, but it's completely divorced from what I do for work. It's more of a side project. So I wasn't really looking at energies, kind of industries like energy, which have a huge impact on kind of the trajectory in which we're moving. And then I felt this kind of sense of a kind of a lack of connection to what I was doing at Google. Liked it, but it didn't. It was advertising, and it didn't really drive a lot of that interest. So I started looking at different scale ups, and I wanted to go smaller. And I found almost through chance a whole set of software providers, all based out of the UK, that were doing a lot of that work, kind of building software that allowed for the energy transition. So it was driven a bit by values, I'd say. And the big unlock for me was having a really good coach. I
Oh,
it's so underrated. Honestly, I wish I had realized this a lot sooner, that you just need kind of somebody else to talk to that's completely objective, that's not your partner or somebody at work, somebody that can kind of play these ideas off of you and tell you, for instance, that you are very values driven, even though you think you're a corporate guy.
I love that. I mean, I've done a coaching course myself, so I do coaching, and I absolutely support that. I think having a coach, and it's really interesting because it sounds that you've almost shortlisted the organisations you've wanted to work for. That's mapped into your values, which is amazing, Daniel. Well,
Yeah,
that's
and
brilliant.
that sounds a little quick. I actually bounced around a lot. I have the worst ADHD, and I sort of bounced around a lot, got distracted, looked into prop tech for a bit, looked into law tech, legal tech, right? So I looked around, but I eventually got to energy tech, and it's a good match.
I love that. I love that. So I was going to ask the question on what has made the biggest difference in your career, but I think I sort of maybe know the answer to that already, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think coaching has been helpful. Also, just being where I felt I wanted to be personally. So I moved to Washington, D.C., and then sort of fell into defense and aerospace consulting. But, and, I realized after a while I didn't love that, wanted to move out of it. But I was physically in D.C. where I wanted to be. Same story for moving to the UK for business school and then staying in London. Is ultimately I think I could have chased a job and moved to San Francisco. Right, would have been a really obvious choice, but I don't think I would have been as happy. So anchoring on my personal life and kind of deciding to curate my environment that way, and then finding the job that matched was the better path for me.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to get into the space that you're in? I guess we've got two factors going on here. Obviously, you're in partnering, but getting into I think it would be nice to explore getting into a place and something that they're really passionate about, like you are, and how to go about it. So, you've given some tips already, but maybe we take both the things separately.
Yeah, I think outside in, if you're figuring out what kind of company or which specific company, I chose Google from the start, so I knew, and I only applied to one company, got the job, and there we go. But with Kaluza, I figured out, I kind of did an exhaustive search. So I looked at all the industries, just went on a website, looked at a bunch of industries, and started crossing them out, and thought, pharma's not it, finance isn't it, telecom isn't it. So it was really backing into that space, and then looking at business models. There are a lot of great startups. Some of them don't have runway or don't have legs to really grow. So it's taking that critical look and thinking, you know, is there something? Is this heavily reliant on low interest rates, right, or people doing the right thing, or is it a core business model that addresses somebody's need, meets demand, and will grow? And so it's about finding that kind of chemistry, I guess, that
Mm.
formula that works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. This is great tips for someone looking for a job at the moment. I think it's fab the way that you've gone about doing it. Daniel, and another question. So what would be your motto in partnering?
I think it's make sure your partners pass the vibe check. It's
The
we
energy
found
bar.
a great partner recently, and we're going to do some co-marketing, and they passed the vibe check. They were great. They felt like us. They felt like they weren't too kind of ancient in terms of the way they worked, and their tech and that sort of thing. So just make sure the vibes are good, I'd say.
I love it. Energy and vibes. That's the theme. So, Daniel, we've come to the end of the session. I want to thank you so much. You're really interesting to talk to. And thank you to everyone listening to this episode. Thank you for watching. And until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you.